My name is Catherine Katie Hale, and I'm 30 years old. My sister announced baby number 5, and my parents cheered like she'd just won an award. Another one, Mom said, clapping. Big party, and you will watch the kids. I froze. Why me? They're her kids. My sister's smile tightened. You're single. Consider it practice. Dad didn't even look up. That's family. You help. In my family, my time has always been treated like community property, especially because I don't have children, which somehow makes everyone think I don't get to be tired, busy, or overwhelmed. The room kept buzzing. Plans, decorations, guest lists, like I hadn't spoken at all, like my no wasn't a real word. I felt that familiar heat in my chest, the one that comes when you realize you're not a person in the room, you're a solution. So I didn't argue. I didn't beg to be understood. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out while Mom hissed, "Don't be selfish, Katie." I went straight home, packed a duffel with my laptop, my documents, and enough clothes to disappear for a while. Then I left that night without a goodbye speech they could twist into a confession. I thought the worst I'd get was angry texts. I was wrong. My phone lit up with threats. And then one message from Mom dropped my stomach. If you don't answer, I'm calling the police. 10 minutes later, a knock hit my door like a verdict. Police, a man's voice said. When I opened it, an officer looked at me carefully and said, "Ma'am, your mother reported you missing and said she's concerned you might harm yourself." Before I tell you what he said next and what happened after I shut that door, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. The officer wasn't rude, but he was alert in that controlled way that makes your skin go cold, like he's scanning for danger that might jump out of you. I kept my hands visible, forced my voice steady, and said, "I'm not missing. I left on purpose." He glanced at the duffel by the couch, the neat stack of papers on my counter, the phone vibrating nonstop. Then he asked the question that told me he'd seen this before. "Is anyone here with you? Are you safe?" I nodded. "I'm safe. My mother is angry." Behind him, my mother stood in the hallway with damp eyes and perfect posture, like she was on stage. "Katie, please," she said, soft enough to sound loving, loud enough to be heard. "You scared us. You've been acting. Not yourself." Not yourself. Her favorite phrase, because it makes you sound sick instead of done. I looked at the officer and asked, "Can I speak to you alone for 1 minute?" My mom's chin lifted. "There's no need." But the officer raised a hand, calm but firm, and stepped slightly aside. In a lower voice, I said, "She called you to punish me. I left a family situation. I'm not a danger to myself. I'm an adult." The officer exhaled like I'd confirmed his suspicion. Then he turned and said to my mother, "Ma'am, she's okay. She's not missing. She has the right to refuse contact. You need to leave." My mother's face shifted. First disbelief, then rage hidden under a sweet mask. "Katie," she said, voice sharpening, "are you seriously doing this? After everything?" I didn't take the bait. "You called the police on me," I said plainly. She flinched like I'd slapped her in public. "I was worried," she snapped, then corrected herself instantly into a trembling performance. "I'm your mother." The officer repeated, "You need to leave." And my mother backed away with a wounded sigh, meant for imaginary witnesses. "Fine," she said loud enough for the hallway. "But don't come crying when you realize you can't survive without this family." When the door shut, my knees went weak, and for a second I hated myself for still feeling anything at all, because that's how deep the conditioning runs. My phone continued to vibrate like it was alive. Dad texting, "Answer your mother." My sister texting, "Stop making Mom panic." Unknown numbers calling because my mom was cycling through every relative's phone like a thief trying different keys. I did the one thing that made me feel both powerful and guilty at the same time. I blocked my mother's number for 24 hours. The silence that followed felt wrong, like I'd stolen oxygen from the house I grew up in. That's when the voices started, not hallucinations, but the echoes that show up when you've been controlled for years. Mom saying selfish, Dad saying dramatic, my sister saying practice. I packed the rest of my stuff, drove to a cheap hotel, then couldn't stand the walls closing in, so I got back in my car and drove again. Just away. The highway was empty and black, and my tears came out of nowhere, not because I regretted leaving, but because it hit me. My mother was willing to brand me unstable to keep me obedient. At a gas station, shaking, I called Angela, my best friend, the only person who never benefited from my pain. She answered on the first ring, and when I whispered, "My mom called the cops," there was a long pause. Then her voice went ice cold. "Okay." They escalated. "That means you get smarter. Screenshots, call logs, dates. You don't scream. You document." I told her I blocked my mom. Angela said, "Good. Temporary is fine. You need oxygen." While we talked, a text popped in from my sister. "Family gathering this weekend. You're coming. Don't embarrass us." I stared at it and realized the truth. They didn't miss me as a daughter. They missed me as a free service. Angela said, "If you go with a spine." And I replied to my sister with one line that felt like lighting a match. "I'll come, but I'm not the babysitter." Her response came fast. "We'll see." Friday night, I prepared like I was walking into a negotiation with people who didn't believe I deserved rights. I created a folder on my phone labeled Evidence, saved screenshots of the police call threat, saved my call log, saved my sister's "Don't embarrass us" text, and wrote a simple timeline in my notes. Time, date, what happened, because I'd learned something brutal. When you grow up around manipulators, your memory becomes a battleground, and the only way to win is to stop arguing with feelings and start speaking in facts. On Saturday, I drove to my parents' house with my stomach knotted so tight it felt like a fist. The driveway was packed with cars. The front door was open. Inside, the noise hit me like a wall. Kids shrieking, adults talking over each other, music playing too loud, the sound of chaos masquerading as warmth. The moment I stepped in, my mother rushed me like a stage mom greeting her star, wrapped her arms around me and spoke past my shoulder to the room. "See? She's fine." That line wasn't for me. It was for witnesses, proof she hadn't done anything wrong. My father nodded at me like nothing happened. My sister stood near the kitchen island with a glowing smile and a hand resting on her stomach, already soaking up attention. Her eyes found mine, and I saw it. Relief, entitlement, and that hard little glint of control, like she was checking whether I'd come back to my cage willingly. "Good," she said quietly. "You can take them outside. They've been bouncing off the walls." No hello, no apology, just an assignment delivered like a fact. My mother didn't miss a beat. "Yes, Katie, take them," she said, like she was directing traffic. Something inside me went still. I smiled, not sweet, not warm, just calm, and said, "I'm here to talk." My mother's face tightened. "Talk later, help now." The script. Always the script. Prove your love by suffering first. I walked past them into the living room anyway, but not toward the kids, toward the relatives, toward the people my mother cared about impressing. I greeted my aunt, hugged a cousin, asked how my uncle's knee was doing, kept my voice cheerful and normal because nothing rattles a controlling family more than you refusing to act like their story about you is true. My sister tried again, pushing a diaper bag toward my hands as if she could physically place responsibility onto my body. "Here," she said. Just take them. I stepped back. No. The word landed like a plate shattering. My mother laughed too loudly. Oh my God, Katie, don't start. My sister's cheeks flushed. Are you serious? She snapped. You're single. You literally have nothing to do. Stop acting like you're some martyr. There it was. The cruelty, clean and public. A few heads turned. My mother lunged for damage control. She doesn't mean it like that, she said quickly. But she didn't correct my sister. She corrected the room's perception. I tilted my head and asked, calm as glass, then how does she mean it? Silence. My sister's eyes darted around, realizing she'd said the quiet part out loud. Then she doubled down, voice rising. You always make everything about you. Mom's right. You don't have responsibilities like this. You have time. You should help. My father finally looked up, annoyed. Katie, don't embarrass us, he warned, like telling the truth was the embarrassing thing. I felt my pulse steady, and I realized I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I was no longer trying to be liked. I was trying to be free. I love the kids, I said clearly, but I'm not the childcare plan. My sister scoffed, venom sharp. You're just bitter because you can't keep a man. A gasp came from the couch. My mother's eyes widened, not in horror at what my sister said, but in fear of what the room heard. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just spoke facts. I've missed work because I was here, I said. I've canceled trips because I was here. I've burned my PTO because something came up. And that something was always the same. You needed me to fix what you refused to handle. My mother hissed, Katie, and I cut her off gently. No, Mom, let's not pretend. I looked around at the relatives, making eye contact like I wasn't ashamed anymore. If my sister chooses to have 5 children, that's her life. But you don't get to assign me as the second parent because you like the story where she's the hero and I'm the helper. My sister's smile broke. So what? You're punishing me? She snapped. Because you're jealous? The word jealous made my stomach turn. Jealous of what? Being trapped? I said, I'm not punishing you, I'm stopping. My mother stepped forward, voice trembling with contained fury. You're making a scene. I smiled again, small and steady. No, I said, I'm ending one. My sister stormed off toward the hallway, knocking over a plastic cup on the counter. My mother turned to my relatives, hands spread, begging silently for sympathy, but the room had changed. A cousin whispered, Wait. You called the police on her? My mother's face went pale. For the first time, she couldn't control the narrative with a smile. She grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt, pulled me toward the kitchen, and hissed, You will regret doing this in my house. I looked down at her hand on my skin and said quietly, Let go. She didn't, so I lifted my phone, opened the camera, and said, still quiet, Let go. Or I record this too. Her fingers loosened instantly. That small moment, her fear of evidence, told me everything I needed to know about where the real power was. Later, when the noise softened and the relatives drifted into smaller conversations, I stepped outside where the kids were running in circles on the lawn, playing tag like little comets. For a few minutes, I let myself just be with them, not because I was ordered to, but because I genuinely loved them, and I refused to let my family's manipulation poison my relationship with innocent children. One of them grabbed my hand and said, Aunt Katie, you're fast. And I laughed, and it hit me how twisted the situation was. The only pure part of my family life was the part my mother used as a weapon against me. The game of tag felt like a metaphor I couldn't unsee. Kids chasing each other breathless, laughing, and me realizing I'd spent years running from expectations that never tired, always trying not to be it, always trying not to be the one who carried the burden. My sister finally came outside, arms crossed, face tight. "So you made Mom cry," she said. "Congrats." I wiped grass off my palm and replied, "I didn't make her cry. I stopped lying." She rolled her eyes. "You love attention." The cruelty was casual, like it cost her nothing. I studied her face and saw something under the entitlement. Exhaustion. Not the kind that leads to growth, but the kind that becomes an excuse to dump your life on someone else. "I'm drowning," she muttered suddenly, voice lower. "Do you know what it's like? They never stop. The kids never stop. I can't breathe." For a split second, my heart softened. Then I remembered the police at my door. I remembered her calling me useless because I'm single. I said, "I believe you're overwhelmed. I don't believe that gives you the right to assign me as your replacement." She scoffed. "You're good with them. You always have been. You're calm. You're you." She said it like it was a compliment, but it felt like a trap. "That's not love," I said. "That's convenience." She stepped closer, voice turning sweet in that manipulative way my mother taught her. "Fine," she said. "What do you want? Tell me. I'll do it. I just need you back." The words "back" made my spine stiffen. Back where? Back in my place. I took a breath and offered something fair, because fairness is my nature, and they've used it against me for years. "Here's the deal," I said. "I'm not your permanent babysitter. I'll help when I choose, not when you demand. And you're going to start handling your responsibilities without expecting me to sacrifice my life." My sister nodded fast. Too fast. "Okay," she said. "I promise. Promise." The word sounded cheap in her mouth, but I wanted to believe that people could change when confronted. I wanted that, because accepting my family's reality hurts. So I gave her the chance. We went back inside. I watched her for the rest of the afternoon like you watch a person who says they're sober after years of lying. She laughed with relatives. She accepted congratulations. She posed for photos, hand on belly, eyes shining for the camera. Then, like clockwork, when she got bored, she drifted toward me with a diaper bag and a sticky cup. "Take them," she whispered, already turning away. My heart sank because I knew what this was, the immediate violation that tests whether your boundary is real. I leaned in, kept my voice quiet, and said, "No." She froze. "What?" Her eyes flicked to my mother like she expected backup. "You promised," I said, calm. "This is you keeping it." My sister's face twisted. "I just need 5 minutes," she hissed. I stared at her and said, "You always need 5 minutes. 5 minutes turns into 5 hours. 5 hours turns into my weekend. I'm not doing it." She laughed like I was joking, but my expression didn't move. That's when her embarrassment turned into anger. She raised her voice so my mother could hear. "You're doing this to punish me," she snapped. My mother spun around instantly, eyes blazing. "Katie!" she barked, like I'd slapped the pregnant woman. I didn't yell back. I said, "No, I'm doing this to stop enabling her." My mother's face went tight with rage and fear because I'd said the word that exposes them, enabling. She tried to reframe it immediately. "We're supporting your sister," she said. "That's what family does." I nodded once. "Then support her," I replied. "Don't outsource it to me." My sister looked like she wanted to scream. I could almost see her calculating. If she couldn't control me with guilt, she would control me with damage. And I knew, standing in my parents' kitchen with relatives listening and kids whining in the background, that the promise had never been real. It had been a delay tactic. She wasn't going to change. She was going to retaliate. 2 days later, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize, because blocking her didn't stop her. It only taught her to find new doors. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered, because part of me wanted to hear how she'd justify weaponizing law enforcement against her own daughter. "Katie," she said immediately, "no hello, no softness. I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now." I kept my voice even. "It's not a game. It's a boundary." She scoffed. "A boundary?" she repeated like it was a dirty word. "Your sister is pregnant. Stress is bad for the baby. If anything happens, it's on you." There it was. Blame preloaded. Guilt packaged as concern. I felt anger rise, but I didn't let it drive. "Mom," I said. "She chose to have another baby. I didn't choose to be the second parent." My mother's tone sharpened. "You're acting like a stranger, like you don't belong to us." Belong. That word chilled me, because it revealed what she believed, that I was property. "I belong to myself," I said quietly, and there was a pause like she'd never heard that language before. Then she attacked. "If you keep humiliating us, don't expect us to be there for you," she threatened. The funny thing about threats like that is, they only work when the person has actually been there for you. My mother had been there in the way a boss is there, managing, demanding, evaluating. "You weren't there when I needed rest," I said. "You were there when you needed help." She sucked in a breath. "How dare you?" she snapped. "After everything I've done for you?" I cut her off calmly because I'd practiced. "You did things so I'd owe you. That's not love." Her voice trembled now, switching into performance tears. "So you're going to destroy this family?" Destroy. Another favorite word. In my family, refusing to be abused is destroying. I took a breath and said the sentence that made the room go silent even though I was alone. "If the kids are being neglected, and you keep using them as leverage, I will document it. And if I have to, I will call for real help." I didn't say it dramatically. I said it like a policy. My mother went quiet. Pure, terrified quiet, because she didn't fear my anger. She feared accountability. "You would call services?" she whispered, as if I'd threatened murder. I replied, "I will protect children. I will also protect myself." Her mask cracked. "You ungrateful—" she started, then caught herself, and her voice turned deadly calm. "Your sister is telling everyone you've been unstable lately. Do you know what people are saying?" I felt my stomach drop. Not because I believed it, but because I understood the strategy. If they could brand me unstable, they could discredit every boundary I set. "Stop," I said. "Stop lying about me." My mother laughed softly, cruel. "Then behave," she said. "Come apologize. Come back. Take your place." Place. She actually said it. I closed my eyes and felt something inside me click into a new shape. "I'm not available," I said, and hung up before she could twist the conversation into another trap. Immediately, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives. "Your mom said you're going through something. Are you okay? Don't do this to the family." I realized the smear campaign had already started. I texted Angela. "They're spreading the unstable story." Angela replied, "Then you go clean, facts only, receipts, no emotion, and keep everything." I opened my evidence folder, took screenshots of the unknown number calls, saved my mother's voicemail, and wrote down every threat while it was fresh. Because if my family wanted to turn my life into a trial, fine. I was done showing up unprepared. The smear campaign didn't explode all at once. It seeped into everything like smoke. A vague post appeared on my sister's social media. "Some people don't understand what family means." My mother commented, "Praying for healing," like she was the victim of my independence. An aunt messaged me, "Your mom says you're having an episode." An episode. Like I was a malfunctioning appliance. I stared at that word until it blurred, because it was the perfect weapon. It made them sound concerned, and it made me sound unreliable. My sister texted me directly. The mask off now. You want boundaries? Fine, she wrote. Enjoy being the villain. Everyone knows you hate kids. Everyone knows you're jealous. Jealous again, because that's the only way she could make my boundaries sound like bitterness instead of sanity. My hands shook, and for a minute the old instinct kicked in. Explain, defend, prove. Then Angela's voice echoed in my head. Facts only. I decided my response would not happen in private, because private is where my family rewrites the story. So I did something they never expected. I went public with calm receipts. Not a rant. Not a scream. A clean statement posted in the family group chat where cousins, aunts, uncles, and even my grandmother lurked, the group my mother cared about most. I wrote, I love the kids. I will not be the default babysitter anymore. Calling the police on me for leaving is unacceptable. I'm sharing this so rumors don't replace facts. Then I attached screenshots. My mother's text threatening to call the police, the call log from that night, and my sister's message ordering me to show up and not embarrass them. I kept it short and factual because facts have a different weight than emotion. The chat went silent for a full minute. Then the messages started popping like fireworks. Wait. She called the police? Why would you do that to your own daughter? That's not okay. My mother immediately tried to spin it in the chat. I was scared for her safety. And my sister piled on. We were worried she was unstable. But timelines don't lie. Screenshots don't lie. Their story didn't match their own words. My mother messaged me privately, furious. Delete that right now. I replied with one sentence. Stop lying about me. My sister called me, screaming, but I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that was half rage, half panic. You're ruining everything. You're embarrassing Mom. How could you do this? Embarrassing Mom. Not hurting me. Not traumatizing the kids. Embarrassing Mom. That's when I realized the core truth. My family values image over integrity. Then my sister escalated again. She started telling people I was dangerous around the kids, that I was unstable, that I snapped and ran away, that I needed help. It was grotesque, using mental health language as a weapon. A cousin messaged me, hesitant. Katie, I'm sorry to ask, but are the kids safe with you? That question made my vision tunnel. Safe with me. I'd been the safe one. I'd been the stable one. I'd been the one cleaning up chaos. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I replied calmly, I have never harmed anyone. I have receipts. If you want them, I'll share. A few minutes later, my mother called from another new number. I didn't answer. She texted, if you keep this up, you'll regret it. My heart pounded because in my family, regret usually meant punishment. That night, I got an email from my job's HR inbox asking me to schedule a meeting. No details, just, please come by tomorrow morning. My stomach dropped. My mother had found a new battlefield. She wasn't just trying to win the family narrative, she was trying to threaten my livelihood. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and created a second folder. Work protection. I printed my call log. I saved my screenshots to the cloud. I wrote a timeline with dates and times like a report. Because if my mother wanted to play dirty, I would play clean, and I would win with documentation. The next morning, I walked into HR with my spine straight and my hands steady, even though my stomach felt like it was full of nails. My manager and an HR rep sat across from me with polite faces, the kind of polite that means something serious is about to be said. The HR rep cleared her throat. Katie, she began, we received a concerning call from someone claiming to be your family. They said they were worried about your mental health. I stared at her, and for a second, everything went silent in my head except one clear sentence. My mother is trying to destroy me. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I said, Thank you for telling me. I have documentation. The HR rep blinked. Documentation? I opened my folder and slid printed pages across the table. The text where my mother threatened to call police if I didn't answer. The call log showing the barrage of calls. The screenshot of my sister ordering me to come back and not embarrass them. And a short written timeline of the police welfare check. I said calmly, "My mother called the police to punish me for leaving a family situation. Now she's escalating by calling my workplace. I'm not a danger to myself or others. I'm dealing with harassment." My manager's expression shifted from concern to anger. On my behalf. HR's voice softened. "I'm sorry this is happening," she said. "We can note this and block external calls if needed." For the first time in days, I felt a tiny exhale of relief, not because the situation was fixed, but because the narrative had failed where it mattered. When I got home, Angela was waiting with coffee and that fierce, protective look. "You did it," she said. "You didn't fold." I almost laughed because in my family, not folding is treated like a crime. I told Angela everything, and she nodded like she'd been expecting the worst. "They'll try another route," she warned. "When narcissistic control breaks, they go nuclear." That evening, I went to a small get-together at Angela's place. Nothing fancy, just a few friends who knew me as a person, not a role. For a couple hours, I felt normal again. I laughed. I breathed. I felt my body unclench. Then my phone buzzed with a new message from my sister. "Mom says you ruined everything. Fix it." I stared at the screen and felt the old guilt trying to crawl back into my chest like a familiar parasite. I typed slowly. "I'm not fixing a lie." She replied immediately. "So you're really abandoning us?" The word abandon? My mother's favorite. My sister's too. They use it because it flips the script. The exploited becomes the villain. The exploiters become the victims. I opened my journal and wrote one line. A boundary is not abandonment. Then I did something that ended the maybe forever. I sent one final message in the family group chat. Short, calm, and sharp. If anyone contacts my employer again, files another false report, or shows up at my home, I will pursue a restraining order. I am documenting everything. I hit send and set my phone down like a gavel. 2 minutes later, an unknown number called. I stared at it, heart thundering. I answered. A woman's voice said, "Is this Catherine? This is Child Protective Services. We received a call expressing concern about the children in your family and your involvement." My blood went ice cold. CPS. My mother had crossed from harassment into something that could stain my life permanently. I forced myself to breathe, forced my voice steady, and said, "Okay, I'm ready to talk. I also have documentation." The CPS worker asked calm questions: where I lived, whether I was currently caring for children, whether there had been incidents. I answered honestly, "I am not the children's primary caregiver. I have set boundaries. My family is retaliating." She paused, then said, "We also received information that you may be unstable." There it was, the poison in official form. I felt anger surge like heat, but I kept my tone controlled. "That statement is false," I said. "It's part of a harassment pattern. I can provide screenshots, call logs, and the police welfare check report number." The CPS worker's voice stayed neutral, but I heard a shift, attention sharpening. "Please send whatever you have," she said. When the call ended, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall, and a strange calm settled over me. My mother had done it. She'd tried to weaponize police, my job, and now CPS to yank me back into place. And in that moment, I saw two endings in front of me like doors. Door 1. I keep begging them to be decent, and they keep escalating because control is all they know. Door 2. I end the cycle for good, with legal boundaries, documented harassment, and zero access to my life. I picked up my phone, opened my notes, and wrote a plan with bullet points instead of tears. Then I looked at the ceiling and whispered, "You wanted a war? Fine. But you don't get to write the story anymore." Which door would you choose? Soft peace that keeps you trapped, or hard freedom that finally protects you? At Revenge Argon, our team works hard to create powerful, meaningful scripts. We want you to know these stories are purely fictional, made to deliver positive lessons and educational takeaways for our viewers. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please follow the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to create even higher quality, more exciting videos for you.